Welcome to Movie Time, where we dive into TV series recaps and movie spoilers. Let's get started. In Landman, Season 2, Episode 6, Nathan meets Rebecca Falcone, Kayla Wallace, to discuss drilling a new well. Rebecca wastes no time getting straight to business, pressing him for a timeline. Nathan estimates they can have everything wrapped up by the end of the year. When she asks about production potential, he explains that the old well alone generated over $1 billion annually, setting expectations sky high. Rebecca then asks if they have an offshore geologist capable of overseeing a project this risky. Nathan assures her they do and mentions a man named Newsom, a veteran who previously worked offshore for BP. Intrigued, Rebecca says she should meet him. Nathan agrees and sends her a location pin. When Rebecca arrives, the meeting immediately takes an unexpected turn. Newsom is the same man she slept with on the plane. Awkward tension fills the air as she pushes past it and lays out the drilling problem, admitting she doesn't fully understand the obstacles involved. Newsom tells her there will be plenty, and that he's more than capable of explaining them. He invites her inside, but Rebecca insists on staying outside, where everything is visible and professional. Newsom offers her a beer. She refuses at first, reminding him they're on the job. He counters that it's after 5, and he's stuck on site for 3 days until the well comes online. After some back and forth, and his reminder that she can be good at her job and enjoy herself, she finally accepts. Newsom explains that the well has blown out, forcing the company to drill a new one with no guarantee of finding gas. Rebecca realizes the financial risk immediately. Newsom reassures her that gas drilling is more forgiving than oil. It all comes down to picking the right spot. When she asks if he can do that, he challenges her. Is she asking him to lead the rig offshore? The tension shifts. He kisses her. Rebecca calls it assault, then kisses him back. She pulls away, reminding him that they now work together. Newsom asks how many hours she gives her job. All of them, she says. He admits the same, pointing out that with lives like theirs, meeting someone is almost impossible. Rebecca suggests slowing things down. Newsom smiles and offers to make her dinner. On the other hand, Tommy's day starts in chaos when he walks into his house and finds Angela Norris, Ollie Larder, half-naked, casually roaming around. He asks her, politely but clearly, to put on some clothes. Angela immediately turns it into a challenge, asking if her body bothers him. Tommy insists it doesn't, but reminds her there are other people in the house. When TL walks in, Angela repeats the question, only to get another awkward no. Seconds later, Dale Bradley, James Jordan, enters and Angela asks him the same thing. Dale decides it's a trap, mutters that it feels like a trick question, and exits as fast as possible, only to bump into Ainsley Norris, Michelle Randolph, who is also walking around in lingerie. At that point, Tommy throws his hands up and declares defeat. Angela asks if Tommy will be home for dinner. He says it depends on the theme. She says Mexican, prompting Nathan, calm fury, to dryly comment that he can't even begin to list the ways that could be offensive. Soon after, Cooper calls Angela with a serious question. How much do engagement rings cost? Ainsley immediately jumps in, telling Angela to make sure the girl doesn't have a penis, because no woman could possibly fall in love with Cooper. Angela fires back, asking if Ainsley is all girl, and Cooper quickly decides he needs to stop spending so much time with her. Angela estimates engagement rings start around $25,000. Cooper argues that Zales says half that online. She scolds him for shopping for diamonds on the internet, then asks if he's talked to Tommy. When Cooper says Tommy told him to call her, Angela invites him over. She's giving him her engagement ring. Cooper is stunned and grateful. Angela then calls Tommy with the news that Cooper is getting married. Tommy isn't surprised and asks if Cooper mentioned rings. When Angela says she's giving Cooper hers, Tommy assumes she means the huge, ugly one from Victor. She corrects him. She's giving Cooper the ring Tommy gave her, which means Tommy now owes her a new one. She adds that this will give her something to do. Without missing a beat, she says she'll need the jet to go to Dallas. Tommy tells her it's headed to Fort Worth. Perfect, Angela says. Let's make a weekend of it. In Fort Worth, Angela calls Tommy to find out where he is. He's at the bar at Cattleman's, waiting. She tells him to get ready to dance. He jokes that he's wearing his sitting down, skulking shoes. She warns him to change them. After the call, TL reminds Tommy that he's getting old and needs to start living a little. At Cattleman's, Angela forces TL onto the dance floor. Soon, Ainsley, Cammy, and Bella, Stephania Spampinato, join in. As they dance, Dan quietly tells Tommy that his wife has a rare talent for stripping people of their inhibitions. He jokes that getting their wives together is something they'll probably regret. Tommy agrees. It's almost guaranteed. The mood darkens when Dan brings up business. Tommy questions him about the time he drove to Odessa to kill 2 drug dealers in a strip club basement. Dan says he did it because lines were crossed and because people in his world are starting to believe Tommy's business is safer with just as much money. Tommy warns him that if he ever doubts the risk, he should walk the streets of Acapulco or Dubai. Dan then asks about TL's story. Tommy insists it's over. Dan doesn't buy it. He admits he senses that Cammy doesn't trust Tommy. Tommy explains that he and her husband once came up together, until the crash of '08 wiped him out and sent him to work for Monty Miller, John Hamm. Cammy doesn't trust him because she thinks he's a loser. Dan's final warning lands hard. When people think that, they don't just get rid of you. They poison your wife to do it. And that's where the episode ends. In case you missed it, let's watch episode 5. Nate informs Tommy that he and Rebecca are already boarding a plane to Fort Worth for an urgent meeting with Blanton's attorneys to address the insurance mess. Tommy wants to come along, but with the meeting starting in less than an hour, there's no time to wait. Left behind, Tommy gives Nate one clear instruction: don't commit to anything without his approval. Nate agrees, then casually drops a bombshell by mentioning a death in a pickup truck and a collision involving an MTEX vehicle. That's when Tommy realizes just how much he's been kept out of the loop. Nate tries to justify it, explaining that since Monty never handled incidents like these, he assumed Tommy wouldn't want to either. But Tommy shuts that down fast. He reminds Nate that he can run MTEX as president and still do his job as a landman. From now on, nothing, no matter how small, happens without him being informed. That point has to be made again at the crash site. When Tommy speaks with Walt, he learns that Walt called Rebecca first, not him, because he felt it was inappropriate to bother the company president over an accident and a death. Frustrated but focused, Tommy shifts into damage control mode, determined to make sure the narrative is airtight so MTEX doesn't take the blame for something that isn't their fault, especially as Walt keeps insisting the truck driver was speeding. As if that weren't enough, Dale then tells Tommy about the H2S poisoning incident that hospitalized Jarrell and killed several hunters before help arrived. That's the final straw. Tommy finally snaps, and honestly, it's hard to blame him. On his drive to Fort Worth, Tommy gets a call from Thomas, who's locked out of the house. Before Thomas can even explain, Tommy unloads everything he's dealing with, turning what should have been a quick call into a strangely touching and mildly hilarious therapy session. It's followed by an awkward exchange between Thomas and Shelby, but Shelby leaves a strong impression. So much so that when Angela and Ainsley return home with their seafood haul, Thomas asks Ainsley to invite Shelby to dinner, framing it as a gathering for friends and family. Watching Angela and Ainsley talk about the party, Thomas has 2 quiet realizations. He genuinely loves being surrounded by his loud, messy, chaotic family, and Ainsley looks exactly like Dorothy. Tommy enjoys Angela Pirate Party. By the end of Landman Season 2, Episode 5, Tommy reaches a breaking point and decides it's finally time to call it a day. For one, he knows he won't be able to stop Cammy from working with Dan, and for another, there's only so much pressure one person can take over the course of 12 exhausting hours. With that realization, Tommy heads home, but not without a few stops along the way. He swings by the patch, shares a genuinely funny conversation with Barney, and has a surprisingly tender exchange with Ariana that briefly grounds him. Eventually, the episode closes with Tommy arriving home to the extravagant, over-the-top pirate theme party Angela has thrown for her people. It's a fitting ending because it quietly reinforces one of the episode's strongest ideas. No matter how overwhelming life gets, time spent with family and friends can make even the worst days feel a little more bearable. Outside the walls of that house, Everything in Tommy's world is falling apart. Calling it a mess almost feels too gentle. His professional life is pure chaos. MTEX is staring down a frightening future, especially if Cammy aligns herself with Dan. Tommy has pulled MTEX out of countless impossible situations before, but this time feels different. Dan isn't just another obstacle. He's a force powerful enough to shut Tommy down entirely, and that terrifies him. The weight of that fear sits so heavily on his shoulders that he chooses to drive all the way from Fort Worth to Midland instead of flying back with Rebecca and Nate, hoping the long road will help him blow off some steam. He even worries that showing up at Angela's party might ruin everyone's mood, given how brutal his day has been. Ironically, the party turns out to be exactly what he needs. Laughing, drinking, and eating seafood don't erase his problems, but they give him a moment to breathe. That brief escape doesn't fix the storm ahead, yet it recharges Tommy just enough to remind him why he keeps fighting. Those are my thoughts on the episode. Thanks for watching Movie Time. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a recap. See you next time for more.